Am I the asshole for not supporting my ex-wife after the divorce? Have you ever felt like you were drowning in a relationship, suffocating under the weight of someone else's control? That was my reality for 8 years. Every day felt like walking on eggshells, never knowing when the next explosion would come. It was exhausting, soul-crushing, and left me feeling like a hollow shell of the person I once was. I was with my ex-wife for 8 years, married for 4. We never had kids, but we did have pets together. We were polyamorous, and she had a girlfriend who lived with us. From the outside, it might have seemed like an unconventional but happy life, but behind closed doors, I was slowly unraveling. In July of 2024, I finally found the strength to leave and asked for a divorce. My ex was emotionally abusive for most of those 8 years. Everything was always my fault, and it would end with her in a blackout rage, screaming at me, everything. If she had a bad day at work, somehow it was my fault. If someone looked at her the wrong way, again, my fault. There was no reasoning with her, no escape from the constant blame. I worked full-time, pulling about 70 to 75 hours a week, while she worked between 30 to 35 hours. Despite my workload, I was the one handling all the housework and taking care of the animals. I didn't mind doing it. I found comfort in caring for our pets, in trying to create some kind of order in the chaos. But I did mind being screamed at when the house wasn't spotless because I simply didn't have the time to dust that week. Meanwhile, every day was a hard day for her, so she would come home, sit on the couch, and play games on her phone or laptop, completely checked out. The last year before I left, I felt like a trapped dog, collar tight, leash short. She had isolated me from my friends and was trying to isolate me from my family. If I wanted to go anywhere, I had to get her permission, tell her exactly where I was going and how long I'd be gone. If I was even a minute late, she would scream at me, accusing me of not caring about her enough to be home on time. I started making excuses to avoid seeing people, just to keep the peace. I was disappearing, one piece at a time. My mental health was in the toilet, about to be flushed for good. I had panic attacks in my car, staring at my phone, dreading the moment I had to walk inside. I felt powerless, like I had no control over my own life. So I did the only thing I could. I left. After that, she started harassing me. The calls at all hours of the night, the texts that flooded my phone when she saw me in public, demanding to know why I was there. She told me I was throwing away 8 years like they meant nothing. But the truth was, those years had already been taken from me, worn down by her rage and manipulation. I had to go no contact, and all divorce matters were handled through a mediator. When I left, I initially agreed to keep paying for her expenses for a short period so she wouldn't be financially ruined. She had quit her job in mid-2023 and was living off me, with some financial help from her girlfriend. I was covering about $1,500 a month for her car insurance, health insurance, and therapy. That was just my portion. In the divorce, she demanded that I pay off her car in 1 year, continue covering her therapy and health insurance for a year, and give her $7,000. Her reasoning? That I had emotionally damaged her by leaving. I refused. I wasn't going to agree to any of it, and honestly, the entitlement pissed me off. I had spent years being emotionally battered, sacrificing my own well-being for the sake of her comfort, and she still expected me to keep shouldering her burdens after I walked away. I told her we could split things fairly. She keeps her car, and I keep mine. Or I could take both, but I wasn't paying for a car that wasn't mine. She ended up giving up her car to me so she wouldn't have to pay for it, then turned around and told her family and our mutual friends that I was being cruel to her. The financial aspect wasn't even the hardest part of the divorce. What truly made it difficult was the emotional weight I carried. For years, I had convinced myself that things would get better, that maybe I was overreacting, or that she would realize how much she was hurting me and change. But that never happened. The control, the manipulation, the gaslighting, it only got worse. At one point, I remember breaking down in my car after work, unable to even go inside because I knew the moment I walked through that door, I would have to walk on eggshells. One wrong word, one forgotten chore, one moment of imperfection, and I would be met with her wrath. I was exhausted. I was done. I had confided in a friend once about what was happening, but she had managed to convince me and them that I was exaggerating, that she wasn't abusive, she was just passionate, that I needed to be more understanding of her struggles. So I stopped talking about it. I bottled everything up, convinced that I had no right to feel the way I did. Leaving was the hardest thing I had ever done. It took everything in me to finally break free, to prioritize my own well-being. And yet, even after I was gone, she still found ways to try to control me. The calls, the texts, the guilt tripping. It didn't end when I walked away. She acted like I had betrayed her, like I owed her my continued loyalty, even after the relationship had destroyed me. Her family and our mutual friends took her side, of course. They didn't see the screaming, the manipulation, the way she chipped away at my self-worth day by day. All they saw was the story she spun, how I had abandoned her, how I had financially ruined her. I lost people I had known for years because they believed her version of events without question. But the truth is, I didn't ruin her. She had already ruined herself long before I left. I had spent years cleaning up her messes, shouldering responsibilities that weren't mine, sacrificing my own happiness for the sake of keeping the peace. And when I finally had enough, she expected me to keep doing it. Even now, I sometimes question myself. Was I too harsh? Could I have handled it differently? But then I remind myself of all the times I stayed silent, all the times I let myself be treated like a punching bag because I was too afraid of what would happen if I stood up for myself. Now, for the first time in years, I can breathe. I can make my own choices without fear of backlash. I can reconnect with the friends she tried to take from me. I can finally put myself first. And that is something I will never apologize for. Am I the asshole?